You've just entered the Extra Zone Arcade. The early 2010s were an interesting time for Nintendo. It was a moment in time where their hardcore fanbase felt they weren't being catered to, and their target audience had all but moved on. This was no clearer than when the 3DS launched in 2011 to... yikes. Things really started to pick up around the holiday season, helped by the release of Super Mario 3D Land, the topic of today's episode of the Mario 40th Anniversary Superspective. Though, what exactly is this game's story? This game would drastically change the 3D Mario formula, even more than the Galaxy games did. Miyamoto described the game as being a kind of combination of Galaxy, 64 and New Super Mario Bros., and the game would utilize the 3DS's stereoscopic 3D capabilities. Essentially, the idea was to refresh our idea of a conventional 3D Mario game, turning it into something much more akin to the 2D games. Their linear A to B progression, hitting the goal pole to finish levels, and having 3 collectibles to find along the way. Something that would fit much better for the 3DS's pick up and play portable nature. To get into something a little more serious for a sec, development was affected by the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. Developers ended up locking themselves in their homes to keep safe from any potential fallout, and development couldn't continue in Tokyo. The director, Koichi Hayashida, set up a network using his personal contact info so that development could continue. Unfortunately, the game wasn't given any kind of deadline extension. It had to be done for the holiday season, so to divvy up the work, they did something pretty unthinkable for a Nintendo EAD project and outsourced it. Brownie Brown, now known as 1UP Studio, was one of the more notable ones to lend a hand. Yoshiaki Koizumi is back as the producer, and the game would get a full reveal and demo at E3 2011. 4 levels were playable, and featured some pretty notable differences from the final. Goes to show this game's fairly rushed development that things were changed this close to release. And that release would come on November 3rd, 2011 in Japan, November 13th in the US and Brazil, November 18th in Europe, and November 24th in Australia. The game received great reviews across the board, but a common criticism was that the game lacked challenge up until a certain point, and went by too quickly as a result. Like I hinted at before, the game massively boosted the 3DS's sales on release, but was this really all deserved? Super Mario 3D Land isn't a game I have a ton of backstory with. I didn't get a 3DS of my own until 2019, so any experience I had with it was from sneaking one of my brother's ones. This is how I was able to play games like Animal Crossing New Leaf and Kid Icarus Uprising, but they didn't have 3D Land. I got a copy of the game when I did eventually get my own system, and I played this game up until around World 4 and dropped it. Mostly in favor of Tomodachi Life, which pretty much became a hyperfixation for around a month that summer. I want to make a video on that game sometime, especially with the new one dropping next year. It's such a strange and interesting game in Nintendo's repertoire. Anyway, off topic. I played through the main 8 worlds of the game in the summer of 2022 while staying at my girlfriend's. I remember thinking it was pretty good, but didn't have any desire to go into the special world stuff. Not even a year later, I played the game again as part of my Mariothon livestream series. This was the takeaway after playing the game like this a second time.
But yeah, so anyway, that was Super Mario 3D Land. It's time to give my thoughts, because that's what I do during the credits. This game is fun. It's a pretty short game, you know, you can beat it in about 4 hours. It's probably the most cookie cutter, like, 3D Mario game, if this game is essentially if you took, like, the new Super Mario Bros. Series and just put it into 3D, which I think works for this game, but it also kind of means it doesn't have much of its own identity, I feel like, which can lead to it being quite forgettable, compared to most of the other 3D games. But it's fun. Like, it's a very solid game, and a pretty good launch title for the 3DS. And there it is. Another JPEG.
I really didn't have much to say about it, huh? It was a fun game, but pretty much lacked all the sauce that the previous 3D games had. Let's see if that opinion holds true now that I've played the game to 100% completion, and with the 3rd playthrough under my belt. The story begins on a dark and stormy night in the Mushroom Kingdom. The enigmatic tail tree shakes violently through it all, and Princess Peach goes to check on it the next day. Later, Mario and a group of toads investigate after becoming aware of the princess's absence, only to find a letter left behind under the barren tail tree. Bowser left Mario a postcard showing that he has once again kidnapped Peach. How thoughtful. So, Mario rushes over to save her. Again. Look, this whole charade is super overplayed at this point. What else do you want me to say? I mean, she does at least try to escape at one point, as seen in the postcard you get after World 5, only to be recaptured pretty much right after. Each world ends with one of these, so you at least get a little insight into what it's like for Peach while she's in captivity. Anyway, we reach Bowser's castle in World 8 and free the princess, who's tied to a pole with a ribbon that looks very easily breakable. All I'm saying is, if my girl got taken by another dude and I saw her like this, I wouldn't think this was a kidnapping. And I can't figure out which of these scenarios is worse. So we free her, credits roll, and they take a load off under the newly healthy tail tree. But uh-oh, Luigi has been captured now. Okay, so I have a few questions starting with how and why. I mean, this is Luigi, the guy who has been there since day one helping us beat the brakes off Bowser. We just dealt with a sizable chunk of his army, so there's no way he could have been overwhelmed. More importantly, what does he even need him for? Well, he's rescued pretty damn quick, and after the Special 1 Castle, he becomes a fully playable character just like in Galaxy 2. After beating Special 8 Castle, you'll never guess what happens. Peach gets captured, again. Okay, see, it's a little wild to me how frequently this happens, but twice in the same game? I genuinely believe she likes being kidnapped, like, it gives her the kind of thrill she just can't have doing her royal duties. You almost have to commend the level of committing to the bit this woman is on. She's shown to be a capable fighter numerous times, so clearly she's sandbagging hard. Truly a generational talent. Anyway, Mario and/or Luigi saves her once again and the game ends for real this time. Definitely one of the more basic Mario plots, which is really saying something, but I do like some of the little spins and twists they put on it. But as always, the gameplay is the focus and always comes first with Mario, so how is it in this game? The control style in this game is kinda an attempted fusion of 2D and 3D, i.e. you hold down a button to dash like in the 2D games, but have all the major moves from the 3D titles. There's no triple jump here, but the long jump, backflip, side flip, wall jump, ground pound, and even crouch walk make it in. No idea why they keep including that, especially with the ability to roll on the ground. Just tap the run button while crouched and Mario will somersault forward, which can also destroy some obstacles. I found myself doing this a lot whenever I wanted to quickly gain speed, especially with the rolling leap. All the other moves would work as you expect, and the ground control is mostly pretty good. It can feel almost a little too snappy at times, notably when holding down the run button. I feel like I had to be conscious of when I would hold it here more than any other game I've played. I do like that it adds an element of strategy to it. You know, like when would be the best time to sprint or just walk. Though I'm not sure that was the actual intention. It didn't help that on the very real 3DS I used to play this game on, the joystick sensitivity was set too high, so Mario would pretty much rocket off in some direction if I even slightly moved the stick. I realized this fairly late into my runtime, so I played a lot of the game with these hypersensitive controls. I won't knock the game for that though. Regardless, it definitely does feel a lot more sensitive, especially compared to the much more rigid Galaxy games. Mario has a little more of a speed curve this time, so precise platforming without an aid like Galaxy's spin felt feasible. The momentum is easy to gauge and used to your advantage to make longer jumps. You can also turn on a dime in the air, which is great for correcting mistakes, and mistakes will be made thanks to the camera. This game's camera works a lot like 64's, already not a good sign, where it's a fixed angle you can only adjust slightly. Unlike 64, a new problem has reared its ugly head, which is that this game likes to give a top-down, kinda isometric view a lot of the time. With this game being built with the 3DS's main feature in mind, they want you to have that 3D slider cranked all the way up to show off how cool it looks. The problem is that most people really didn't care about it. The 3DS went on to sell over 75 million units, and I can almost guarantee you it wasn't because of the 3D. It was because of the library, which was actually really solid, and I need to go back and check out a lot of these. I think the 3D is a cool novelty, but I wouldn't want to use it for a whole level, let alone an entire game. So what ends up happening is these levels that were designed to just look cool in 3D become victims of poor depth perception. I can't tell you the number of times I've died in this game in all my playthroughs from simply not being able to tell where I am. 3D World kinda retains this issue, but it's not nearly as problematic there since the controls were improved. The game feel being slightly awkward with these unflattering angles combined to make some sections of this game pretty weird and frustrating. Though there is an easy remedy to this problem in the grand return of the Super Leaf. Yep, it's back from Mario 3 and turns you into Raccoon Mario. Wait, huh? The Tanuki suit? That's not at all how that worked in 3. Okay. Anyway, it gives you the ability to glide down just like it did 23 years prior, but you can't fly up with it. No complaints here though, as that would completely break this already pretty easy game into pieces. You can break bricks with the tail swipe attack, which also defeats enemies and rotates these cogs to find secrets. This is the power-up you'll be using the most, which you'd think would be obvious given it's on the box art, logo, and promotional stuff, but remember the Mega Mushroom in New Super Mario Bros? There are a couple of variants of this power. The Invincibility Leaf, which gives you the White Tanuki form, and the Statue Leaf. White Tanuki is given to you through this special block that only appears if you die and off on a certain level. It makes you completely invincible while having all the same abilities as the regular Super Leaf. I've seen a lot of hate for this thing, and even though you'd never catch me dead using it, I think it's a nice way to give less skilled players a chance to go through these super tough challenges. The only thing I do hate about it is that if you're so much as offered this thing in a level, you permanently lose out on getting a shiny save file. That means you can't die more than 5 times on any level outside of the special worlds. Though for those levels it's because the thing literally can't spawn there. It's just really cruel and technically means I didn't 100% the game, but with all due disrespect, I don't give a shit. I got the 5 stars, that's good enough for me. The statue leaf on the surface seems to just be the Tanuki suit with a bandana, but perform a ground pound and he'll turn to stone. In Mario 3, the Tanuki suit just had this ability inherently, so they kinda nerfed it and just made this into a separate power-up for some reason. Weird. In this state, you're both invincible and immovable for a short time, and just like the original, I barely used this move. Being the first 3D Mario game to use traditional power-up system from the classics, the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Star all appear and function as they do in those games. The last power-up is technically the only brand new one, the Boomerang Flower. It's basically this game's equivalent to the Hammer Suit, except it's like a C tier power-up this time instead of an S. Okay, to be fair to it, I think it's still fun to defeat enemies with, especially in large numbers. It's also great for collecting things like coins and other goodies from afar. I would have liked to see it get more play, but alas, not in this game. Get hit without a power-up and you lose a life. I love that Small Mario loses his hat. They did this a lot around that time. Only in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, he actually lost it for playing well. You know, getting to 99 lives. This game also continues the trend of those being way too easy to get. I ended my run with over 300 left in stock. New Super Wii was the first game to really introduce this problem, but then Galaxy 2, despite its generally more intense difficulty, hands them out like crack at a college frat party. There's literally an entire room on Starship Mario where you can spin some dice for a bunch of lives, and it barely costs anything to play. That game at the very least resets your life count every time you load up a file, but here in 3D land, it saves. And you are gonna rack up lives like nobody's business just by playing the game normally. Hit the top of a flagpole, extra life. Finish with a lot of timer on the clock, that gets converted into coins, which converts into lives. Not to mention the overabundance of coins in the levels themselves, and plenty of 1-up mushrooms to go around. You see, at this point the concept of having lives in games was already becoming a topic of debate. Was it really just a remnant of the arcade and rental days? Just a way to get you to fully buy a game or pop quarters into a machine? Or a real incentive to challenge players that gets them to learn the ins and outs of every game they play? Well, I think it's the former, and this game is proof as to why. They're effectively meaningless because of how many you can get. You will never see the game over screen in this game, so what genuinely is even the point at that rate? It would take Nintendo some time to realize this, but this was the beginning of the end of lives in Mario games right here. Though I don't care enough to use this as a genuine critique of the game because it's just that much of a non-issue. I think lives should have been gone, even before this game. Okay, I've gone on a lot of tangents this episode, so let's rein it in and talk about some of my favourite stages here. There weren't too many memorable ones this time, for better or worse, but I have to say I really enjoyed Special 6-1. It's a harder remixed version of 3-1 that incorporates the propeller box, and really gives me Galaxy vibes with the level design. It has that perfect marriage of open and linear design, with opportunities for major skips if you know what you're doing. The nighttime desert theme isn't one we get to see much, so it wins in the aesthetic department. Special 7-3, based on 7-4, was another cool one. It's basically Tick-Tock Clock from 64 if it were good. It's all about super tough platforming across these gears, avoiding bob-ombs and fuzzies as you make it to the goal. Once again, this one gets big points for the visuals, definitely one of the most memorable in the game setting-wise. On the flip side, let me talk about one of the most boring levels in all of Mario history, Special 4-1. It's one of the only Special World levels that isn't based on a main game one, and it's arse. It's a slow platform ride for the entire runtime with random bullshit go levels of enemy and hazard placement. Just a sloppily designed level that borders on frustrating due to its slow pace and obnoxious obstacles. Normally this would be where I talk about another level I didn't like, but in this case I want to point out a set of levels that are all the same thing. 7-2, Special 3-4, and Special 5-2 are literally all the exact same level with slightly varying degrees of difficulty. It's not even a bad level or anything, just by the time I got here the third time I was tired of the same underground with spike bars and chain chomps gig. The worst of these is Special 5-2 though, purely because of these cosmic clones that chase you around. These guys, in both their big and small variants, will try to ruin your day in a good chunk of the Special World levels. But how do you even get to these? Well, after you beat Bowser in World 8 and roll credits, you only really beat the first half of the game. Every world has a special counterpart, and I'm sure you've pieced together by now, this is honestly where the real fun is. Like I alluded to when talking about this game's reviews, a lot of folks were less than impressed with the challenges offered by the main game. For them, the only real difficulty came from their second campaign, and I agree with that completely. Some levels can get pretty damn obnoxious here though, but I'd rather that than just coast by with little resistance. You'll need to make sure you're all stocked up on those star medals you've no doubt seen floating around every level. Much like the star coins, yes, these are totally different, in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, there are 3 to collect in each level. Your progression will be locked behind these at certain points throughout the game, so make sure you grab all the ones you see. Do that and you'll pretty much never have to backtrack since the requirements are never anything too crazy. Of course, to see all this game has to offer, you'll need to get them all, and they typically aren't too hard to track down. I don't remember a single one of these being hard to find, but some of them can be pretty frustrating to actually grab. The most annoying one is every single one in Special 8-3. This is a super tricky castle level where you're on an extremely strict timer and being chased constantly by giant Cosmic Mario. Basically, combine Speedy and Clone Comets from Galaxy 2 into one mission where you have to do ultra precise platforming. Yeah, grabbing the star medals was a bona fide nightmare in this one, not fun at all. Otherwise, I think they're fairly well implemented and enjoyable to collect, but not as much as new Super Wii star coins, and maybe even DS's to an extent. Collecting all the medals, hitting the top of the flagpole as both Mario and Luigi in every level, and finding the 2 random secret exits that are here, for some reason, you unlock this game's ultimate final challenge, Special 8 Crown. This now being the second game to have this kind of 100% reward, it's a super difficult level that requires you to lock in or get locked out. There's no particular section that stands out as the most difficult, but this level will do its best to wear you down until you're all out of power-ups and ripe for losing a life. That said, there is one particular jump you have to make here, which is one of the hardest jumps in all of Mario. This one jump claims so many of my lives, probably more than the number of times I died to the perfect run in Galaxy 2. It's... yeah, for some reason there's a random Toad here that you have to enemy bounce off of to reach this super small platform above him. It is so easy to miss this or get a bad bounce off the fungi that I had to have lost at least 10 lives to it. Just insanely brutal and kinda jank. The rest of the level is no joke either, like these firebar sections that make me incredibly nervous and another Cosmic Clone Pursuit. This is one of the harder levels of its kind, but it could also be the unfamiliarity. I rarely see people talk about it, so I went in with no impression of how difficult it was. Only that it'd be more difficult than what I played in the game up to that point, which for the record wasn't close to how hard I ended up finding it. You get a nice little thank you message after it though, just like in Super Mario World. I love it when they do that, it always feels like such a relief when you see it. Like, you just know you finally did it and have overcome everything to make it here. One of the things to overcome are the bosses. Yes, we still gotta talk about those. There are 5 different bosses to face at the end of each world. Bowser, Tail Bowser, Dry Bowser in the special worlds, Boom Boom returning from Mario 3, and newcomer Pom Pom. Okay, so basically there are only 3 bosses. It's wild to think there was a time where Boom Boom and the Koopalings weren't mainstays in the franchise. It took them all over 20 years to show up in anything past the original games, but the big guy is back and just as easily defeated as ever. It can be a little hard to land your hits on his dome due to the depth perception being weird in this game, but he goes down in just 3 hits as before. The Mario 3 love was really strong in this game, and throughout this era as a whole. You'll come to see that in the next several games. Pom Pom is... okay, who exactly is she? I always thought she was like Boom Boom's older sister, mainly because in 3D World, Boom Boom learns her invisibility technique. She can't do it in this game though, so instead she'll toss boomerangs at you and hop away to try to evade attacks. You might even fight them together occasionally, but they can't coordinate to save their lives, so taking them down together is no different than on their own. Tail Bowser and Bowser fight the same, breathing fire, swinging his tail and jumping around to try and flatten you or take out platforms. The only difference is Tail Bowsers are actually fake Bowsers from all the way back in the first game. It's crazy to think that concept existed for so long without them doing anything with it again. Wonder when they'll bring back Bowser's brother. In the final fight, he has a few new attacks including this Donkey Kong style barrel throw. Beef so generational that your current op uses the same attacks as the original. Dry Bowser makes a surprise return from New Super Mario Bros. And fights the same as regular Bowser, but he shoots blue fire now, so that's totally different. Cool to see him show up again though. And that's Super Mario 3D Land, a game that, while very solid despite the circumstances around its development, is lacking in a lot of ways. The Mario series has always prided itself on creativity and innovation. Nah, I'd say it's defined by it. This game is severely lacking in both of these. In almost every game up to and past this point, I can point to a moment of ingenious design you wouldn't find anywhere else in the industry, even in some of the games I'm less enthusiastic about. Here, I just can't. It's so forgettable and bland, but well designed enough where not a single aspect of this game sticks out, good or bad. When folks criticize the Mario series for being too safe or too simple, I think this is the game they're talking about, even if they don't know it. There was an attempt to bring the series back to its roots after the Ambitious Galaxy series, which was a bold and appreciated move, but I think they misunderstood what made the classic 2D game so iconic. Mario 3 wasn't beloved just because it had blocky level aesthetics, it was because those complemented the gameplay and level design in creative ways. Ways that push the industry forward. This game feels like it's setting things back just a touch too much. That said, it is still a fun time and I recommend you give it a shot. At worst, you'll have a good time with it and forget about it immediately after. Which seems to be the common sentiment, as this game got good reviews in the 8 to 9 range, with a lot of praise coming from its more traditional approach. The game also sold 12.89 million units to date, and yet it feels like this game has been forgotten. No one really talks about it. You'll never see it come up in best or worst Mario games list, you'll never see anyone argue it's even close to the best Mario game. It just is. And maybe for the time, that's all it needed to be. Looking back now though, this 3D land is pretty desolate.
Welcome to a new way to play Mario, where stunning 3D worlds await, and you can do the impossible. You can play inside Mario's world in 3D. Now on Nintendo 3DS, Super Mario 3D Land, rated E for everyone.
Time to leave another Mario 40th Anniversary Superspective episode in the dust. Sorry, couldn't pass it up. What did you think about Super Mario 3D Land? Do you ever think about Super Mario 3D Land? Let me know down in the comments. Maybe this game has a lot of fans and I didn't know it, so I'd like to hear from you. While you're making your way down there, hit that nice subscribe button so you don't miss this series and any other uploads. Make sure to go check out the live channels for some funky weekend content, and I'll catch you next time for the last time Super Mario Bros. Was new. Take it easy now.